We have a couple notes here. We do need to move item number 65 to immediately follow item 71. And then I also have a 60A, which is under mayor's item. This is just an update on the West Main Street study. And also from Alderman LaCroix, a 60B, which is budget schedule. And then let's go to lights. Anyone wish to have any other items added to the agenda? Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week at the Legal and Finance Committee meeting, Ev Merritt came forward and asked that we support the event in Memorial Park on the 28th of August by having the mayor draft a proclamation. That was unanimously passed by the Legal and Finance Committee, but it failed to make its way to our council agenda. So I'd like to add that item.
Malcolm, let's put that as a 60C under items from Alderman, and if you could just read that since that's informational only.
Mr. Mayor, actually,
Yes.
it's some direction to draft a proclamation in support of the event.
Okay, that's already done, but
It is done.
it is done.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Any other items to be added to tonight's agenda? Please turn on your light. Any additional items from staff or from the council? Very good. Just also a point of clarification, we do have an item 61 under Alderman's items. Just for point of clarification, that is a discussion item only, and so I just want to make that point of clarification. Item 61. Any further discussion? Chair will look for a motion to adopt the agenda with the following revisions. Moving item number 65 to immediately follow item number 71. Adding item 60A, B, and C.
So moved.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We're on to approving the minutes. Chair would look for a motion to approve the minutes of the July 29th, 2009 special council meeting and the August 3rd regular council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Now we have a number of recognitions and awards, and I'm going to go down front, and I would ask Mr. Grothe if he could come join me. You know, it's always truly an honor to recognize those citizens that have made a huge difference in our community over the years. So let me read this proclamation. It says, whereas it is altogether fitting and proper that the city of Rapid City recognize and honor our outstanding citizens, and whereas William M. I'm sorry, this is a little emotional. Is a well-known professional. You have to understand, Bill Grothe and I go back, what, about 30 years? Whereas William Grothe is a well-known professional photographer in Rapid City who has played a major role in preserving our history. Bill's photographs have documented many historic events in and around Rapid City and the Black Hills, including the construction of Mount Rushmore and the 50th anniversary of Mount Rushmore, as well as Crazy Horse. Whereas Bill's wonderful collection includes two outstanding photographs. One is of the survivors of the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre, and a portrait of the last 9 survivors of the 1876 Battle of the Little Bighorn. And today these photographs are proudly displayed in the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. And whereas through his generosity, Bill has donated many images to schools and colleges so that Native American youth will learn about their ancestry. And his long-standing project of capturing the natural world, including the 12 Lakota moons, on film will provide future generations with an excellent depiction of life in the Black Hills. Now, therefore, I, Alan Hanks, Mayor of the City of Rapid City, do hereby proclaim September 2nd 2009 as William M. Grothe Day in Rapid City, South Dakota. This day commemorates the day in 1948 in which he took his famous photograph of the remaining survivors of the Battle of the Little Bighorn. This recognition of Bill Grothe honors his long-standing contributions to Native American history, the history of the Black Hills and of Rapid City. We extend our thanks to Bill Grothe for preserving our past so that we can share it in the future. Bill, thank you so much.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
A little overwhelming for a country kid, so you know, it's been an honor for me to meet and photograph so many of the people of this city and the community of the Native Americans. And many of those times, my wife was the one that carried me along because she had to pay the bills. A lot of this, most of all of this work was done with her help and with her along with me. And she's coming up to join me now, so give her a hand, please. Yeah, that's fine. We have a special guest with us tonight that's part of the family. Our son Mark is here to help me out for a week and to visit us. It's his 50th birthday today, so it's quite an honor to have him with us. And he's got his son, my namesake, Will. Stand up and show your hair off there, will you? They're from Las Vegas and here for a week. They came without the rest of the family because the oldest girl is going on to college, and so they just came for a short visit. I want to thank everybody. It's very overwhelming, I repeat, and I was so astounded to see so many people. I didn't even know I knew this many. My wife knows them all, though. Well, anyway, I am not much for words, but I want to thank everybody for attending. This has been a very special evening, and I say welcome especially to these folks that came here from the Native American culture. We love you, and we don't see enough of you. So I appreciate it. I remember when we gave these pictures to the airport 19 years ago, it was freezing cold, and 3 carloads with over 20 natives drove up in that blizzard from the reservation to honor me at the airport, and I'll never forget it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Bill. And as we like to say, that was curtain 1. We have a curtain 2. And so I'd like to invite Alderman Quaker to come up because he helped in getting another special proclamation. So I'm going to let Sam introduce a longtime friend of Bill's.
Tonight is a historic moment in which we honor someone who has done so much to document many historic moments, some tragic, some beautiful, and in all cases the photographic documentation is fantastic. Ansel Adams was talented, but tonight we have the opportunity to honor someone living right here in our community with amazing talent as well. Mr. Grothe, thank you for your contributions. I would now like to introduce a longtime friend of yours who has a presentation for you on behalf of Governor Rounds and all the people of South Dakota, Senator Stan Adelstein. Senator?
Thank you very much. I suppose I have the advantage of having known this family longer than probably anyone in the room, because 78 years ago this week, I came home from the hospital when I was born to the house next door to where the Grothe family was living. A family of contribution and a family of incredible gifts. It's not by accident that Bill Grothe chose to see the beauty not only in everything that we have in the Black Hills, but in every person we have in the Black Hills. A family that was known for its respect for individuals of every race, every religion, every place they came from. A family that taught, a family that had a caring every day that they walked this earth. Now, this particular member of that family was given, in addition, an ability to see, an ability to capture what he sees, and a willingness to share that ability forever with everyone. So it's a great pleasure that I have to read this executive proclamation, and every word that the governor says is true, and he meant it as well. Whereas William M. Grothe is a professional photographer in Rapid City whose photos have helped preserve South Dakota's rich history, culture, and heritage. And whereas William's photographs document the carving of Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse monuments. And whereas William's photographs capture the devastation of the 1972 city flood. And whereas William photographed survivors of the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre. And whereas William photographed the last 9 survivors from the Battle of the Little Bighorn on September 2nd, 1948. And whereas William has donated many photographs to schools and colleges so young people could learn about their history. And whereas it is fitting and proper as governor to recognize William for the numerous contributions he has made to the preservation of our state's history on this 61st anniversary of the photo shoot of the Little Bighorn survivors. Now, therefore, I, M. Michael Rounds, Governor of the state of South Dakota, do hereby proclaim September 2nd, 2009 as William M. Grothe Day.
Well, I'm running out of words. You know, I forgot also in this to mention my family, but he did a good job of it. So especially my father, my mother, I appreciate that so much. My other family members, my siblings and their children are here in number. I can't see them all. I don't know if I can name them all, but they're all here. There are more Grothes than you can count. So anyway, I appreciate everybody being here, and especially this evening is just overwhelming. I have no other word. And thanks again, Stan. You're welcome. Thanks to you, Alan.
Absolutely, Bill. Let's get a picture with you. Bill, I want you to get right in the middle, and we'll sort of surround you. Squeeze in everyone. Aaron, you have to go back. Thank you, everyone. You know, that really is special. I've known Grothies, I believe, for about 30 years. They were dear friends of my in-laws, so there really is a special moment for Rapid City. I'd like to now invite Wayne Andrews to come on up. He is our Veteran of the Month for August 2009. There again, it's always a privilege to honor those that have served us so well, not only in our community but our nation. Let me just read this, if I may. In partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission, we're pleased to present the August 2009 Veteran of the Month recognition to Wayne Andrews. Wayne graduated from high school in Britain, South Dakota, which up by Aberdeen, it is, and entered the Navy in 1961. He served on submarines out of New London, Connecticut, Charleston, South Carolina, Holy Loch, Scotland, is it Rota, Spain, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, before he retired in 1981. After retiring, he continued to serve another 7.5 years with the government. Wayne's military service awards include the National Defense Award, the Vietnam Award, the Sea Service Award, the Naval Overseas Award, the Rifle Marksman's Award, the Submarine Qualification Pin, and the Submarine Patrol Pin. In 2005, Wayne started a local submarine veterans group associated with the United States Submarine Veterans, Inc. He is currently serving as the Vice Commander of the Rushmore VFW, Post 1273, and is Commander of our Honor Guard. Wayne is a life member of the Veterans of Foreign War, the Disabled American Veterans, and the Retired Enlisted Association, and the American Legion. He has been instrumental in working towards improving conditions for all veterans, and his compassion is beyond caring, and he can always be counted on when needed. Congratulations, Wayne. Why don't you say just a few words?
I'd like to thank the council and the mayor for this honor, and also the Veterans Coordinating Committee for nominating me to this. I thought it was quite an honor till I saw Mr. Bill Grothy. Now, it kind of puts you in your place when somebody spends that many years looking after the community and recording its history.
Very good. I tell you what, let's get some pictures, and can we invite your family up? Do you have any family members here?
Yes, I have my wife and grandson here with me.
Have them come on up. Let's get a picture. Wayne, why don't you come over this way? And we'll get it covered. You know, don't let anybody tell you that honoring our veterans isn't important. Our freedoms are not cheap. Matter of fact, they're very costly. And any time that we have a veteran that has basically given his life and those that have served our country so well over the years, it's always an honor to recognize those folks. I'm just trying to figure out, you're fairly tall, how'd you fit in a submarine? Oh, very good. Let's see, next, could I have the Toxic U12 girls soccer team come on up and their coaches? Come on up, guys, would you? Come on, right through here. Tell you what, let me do this. Well, this is another one of those times when we can recognize great accomplishments from youngsters in Rapid City. Let me read the proclamation. It says, whereas the City of Rapid City, South Dakota hereby recognizes the achievements of the Rapid City Toxic U12 girls soccer team, finishing second in the Disney Cup International Soccer Showcase. This outstanding team of girls gave up only 3 goals in the entire tournament and received compliments from their peers and coaches for their level of soccer skill. And whereas the City of Rapid City commends the coaches and the players of the Rapid City Toxic U12 girls soccer team for the first ever appearance of a South Dakota team in this 50-country international showcase. Now remember, they got second place. And for bringing such high honor to our community. They have shown our community that all of South Dakota that teamwork and sportsmanship is what it's all about. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Rapid City acting through Mayor Alan Hanks and with the concurrence of the Rapid City Common Council that the following names of the players and the coaches be kept as a permanent record of the City of Rapid City, and that a copy of this resolution be furnished to the Rapid City Toxic U12 girls soccer team with the official seal of the City of Rapid City. Congratulations.
Good job.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much, everybody, for being here, and thank you very much, everybody, for giving us this award and this honor. The girls themselves went down, and they did an amazing job. They brought a level of maturity to Florida that I think everybody here in Rapid City and in South Dakota can be very proud of. The biggest thing, though, is these girls, if you guys want to turn around real quick, just turn around and face that way. These girls went out and fundraised, and these are members of the community that came out and helped us and sponsored us. So without their support, you guys can turn back around now. Without their support, this couldn't have been possible. The parents' support, everybody and the parents in the back there taking pictures. With all of their support, we thank everybody. So thank you very much. And
Can you introduce everybody down the line?
yeah, you want to do that? Our other this is my other co-coach, Mike Cole, and we have our assistant coach, Dana Coates first. I'll start with here. Kyle White, assistant coach, and trainer Rick Carlson. So Mike, I'll let you introduce the girls.
On the end, we'll start over here. We have Rachel Mayforth. Next to her, we have Alyssa Dickoff, Emily Hine. You guys can raise your hand so they know. Mackenzie Miller, Afton Burns, Avery White, Delaney Carlson, Brittany Barnes, Alex Coates, Kylie Medler, Alexis Goshorn, Haley Hearn, Hallie Cole, and our team trainer, one of the team trainers, Olivia Inger. So great job, ladies.
This is yours. And then what we have here is for each one of the girls, we do have a copy. Why don't you, okay, guys, get real close and let's get a picture, okay? And I'll ask the council if you can sort of stand up behind. Let's see. Cliff, why don't you go ahead and come up if you would, please? One of the other honors we have is recognizing long-term employees with the City of Rapid City, and I'd like to invite Chief Steve Allender to come up and just say a few words about Clifford Peterson, who is being acknowledged for 25 years of service. Congratulations. Chief, come on up and give us a little bit of a history about Cliff.
Thank you, Mayor. Cliff Peterson came to the Rapid City Police Department in 1984 and spent the majority of his career as a uniformed patrol officer. He spent the last several years as a sergeant in our Field Services Division, our patrol division, supervising young, energetic police officers. And much like having teenage children at home, I think Cliff might agree with that. I've known Cliff all of my career. In fact, my wife met Cliff one day when he gave her a speeding ticket. And no, Cliff has been in the trenches his whole career. He has been right out there on all 3 shifts, on the night shift, and seen everything and done everything. So these 25 years have been a lot of work for him. We really appreciate Cliff. It's an honor to honor him tonight with a recognition of 25 years. Thanks, Cliff.
Oh, come on, sit down. Oh, thank you very much. I don't know that I deserved all that, but I appreciate it. You know, as Steve said, I've been here 25 years, and it's been very enjoyable. For the most part, Rapid City has been my home. I moved here when I was 7 years old. My dad was military, but we ended up staying here after we moved here in '65. And I was looking for a job that would hopefully ultimately lead to a long-term career and decent retirement someday. 3 years away yet. But I found my home at the Rapid City Police Department. I've enjoyed it. It's been a great place to work. I've been treated well. We work with great people. It's like a big family. And I appreciate the 25-year certificate. And hopefully I won't be here for another 25 years, but maybe another 3. So, but thank you very much.
Do you have any family you want to bring up? Or?
I don't know if they want to come up or not.
Bring the birthday
You want to
girl
come up? Jada, Terry, Larissa, Mike, Glenda. Just a few.
Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and continue on. Before we get into general public comment period, just a reminder, not only for the council and the staff, but also those in the audience. Of course, we lost really a lifelong friend of the city of Rapid City, and Tom Hennies, and his funeral is tomorrow at 1 o'clock at the Civic Center. So I just want to make sure I made that announcement. 1 o'clock Civic Center tomorrow. We're on to the general public comment period. This is the time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by the unanimous vote of the council members present. I'm looking, let's see here. We do have a speaker request form from Randy Ross, and that is item number 5. Now, please keep in mind, we do time this 3 minutes, so if you just keep an eye on the lights, as it turns yellow, you have about half a minute left, and as it turns red, I would just ask you in the next 15 to 30 seconds to wrap up your remarks. With that, Randy, if you would, please. Okay, give her a try now, Randy.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Good evening, members, honorable members of the City Council. Mayor, thank you for this time. Again, my name is Randy Ross, point person for the Powell Gardens and Indian Art Market project. I'm not here to give any technical details updates, but just to inform you that the project is moving along. We are in the process of the planning. We want to thank you for your support and actions to get the pre-construction design process in place. I want to thank Councilwoman Hadcock for arranging a community, an initial community meeting to address concerns and again to inform us of a better process for planning so we can anticipate some of the things that would come up and then we can make adjustments to the planning design process. So we're very open and want to continue to be inspired of community discourse and have people have input, and we're working very closely with our board of directors. This process is consistent with community planning, community involvement, and those fit in line with objectives of some of the funders that we're looking at. So everything is right on cue. So I'm just pleased to report that. I'm glad to be here this evening. Mr. Grothe, I know you took off here, but I personally, I just want to say, I'm really glad to be here and see him get this award. I was one of the founders of the Black Hills Powwow, and Mr. Grothe stepped forward, and again, I know he's helped many, many people and touched many, many people, but he was a big help to us. And today, the Black Hills Powwow continues to go. So I think these cultural, this is an example of the types of cultural treasures in our own hometown here, our own community, that we need to capture and continue to inspire future generations. When he's long gone, his photos will tell us a story. And that's the whole purpose of this project, is to find a place to frame, to capture, and to have a staging place for this type of cultural patrimony, this cultural property. And so Bill definitely, in my view, has made a great contribution in his image capturing of important elements of our own Native people's culture here. So I want to thank the council and and personally, I really think that that's inspiring to see him here. I want to thank you for that. Just a final comment. I don't have permission from the family, but I do want to say too that we lost another community member, Mr. Sonny Richards-Larvey. He was the first, to my knowledge, was the first Native American police officer here in the city, Rapid City. To me, that's another name we need to remember and to be inspired of the contributions that Native people make to Rapid City. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. We also have a speaker request form on item number 5 under general public comments from Lisa Cook. And Lisa, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Cook. I am a resident of Rapid City, South Dakota, and I am also a member of Ward 3. I'm here to speak just as a private community member in support of the Indian Powwow and Art Market, Indian Gardens and, oh gosh, Powwow Garden and Indian Art Market's 2012 project. I believe that it's a meritorious project. I do appreciate the support the council has made thus far to the project, and I would like to request that the council continue that support for the project. I know that we need to embark upon some further public comment and notification to neighbors, which is a good step to make. And I hope that the council will also consider not only members of the neighborhood who are within 600 feet of the project, but also extending an invitation to the Indian community itself to be able to have an opportunity to express their support and consideration for this project. So I'd like to thank you all.
Thank you, Lisa. We also have a speaker request form from Diana Zephyr, item number 5. And if there again, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Diane Zephyr, and I am a member of the community. I've been here before. I am an attorney also. I think this is a positive project. I have some problems with it, however. I believe that the Indian community needs to be involved, which they aren't. The Indian people, or the native people I've talked to, don't really know anything about it. They aren't involved in the board. There hasn't been any type of newsletter or anything going out to the community, so we really know what's going on. So therefore, I'm going to ask that the Rapid City Council would appoint a task force, and that task force would push forward the Indian Market and Powwow Gardens in Indian Market, because this has been a project that has been going on for 3 or 4 years, and at this point, and I've worked with it for a while, I see it really floundering around under the present leadership and needs some support from the City Council as far as, and I really, do support a task force being appointed, sort of like the same one that the soccer committee had, and I believe, the notice, if there's a meeting, the notice should go to the Native American community in some form. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I do not have any additional speaker request forms under general public comment period. Anyone else wish to speak to any item not on the agenda? Anyone else? If not, we will continue on. We are on to the non-public hearing items. This is items 6 through 61 inclusive. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment on items 6 through 52 inclusive.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Let's see here. We do have one speaker request form from Lisa Cook on item number 24.
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually had put a slash item 24 because comment number 5 was related to item number 24.
Very good. Thank you. I do not see any additional speaker request forms on any items on the non-public hearing. This is items 6 through 52 inclusive. Chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That does take us to the consent calendar, items 6 through 52 inclusive. We need to ask, does anyone on the council or the staff request that any items 6 through 52 inclusive be pulled from the consent calendar? I do have item number 35. Any additional? Please turn on your light. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Number 24, please.
Item 24. Thank you. Any others? If so, please turn on your light. Seeing no further lights, Chair would look for motion to approve the consent calendar, items 6 through 52 inclusive, with the exception of 24 and 35. We have a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the legal and finance consent items. This is item number 24, and we'll go to our chairman. Where's Karen Olson? Karen Gunderson Olson. If you'd read on item number 24, please.
Item number 24 is set a public meeting for educational purposes regarding the Ata Powwow Gardens project at the Journey Museum, with Ata members present, and requested staff to send notification of the meeting to the neighbors within 600 feet of the garden location. And that would be the motion that was approved at Legal and Finance, and I would forward that motion.
Okay, the motion is for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I'd just like to thank Randy Ross and Matt Friedel. I had contacted them, and they thought this was very positive for our community and for their project. I as well think it will be very positive for our community and the project to give a community awareness of this Atapawao grounds. I think it's going to be a positive for all people to know the culture of the people of Rapid City and our community around us. That meeting will be September 9th at 7 o'clock at the Journey Museum Theater, and Ray Summers was nice enough to host this community awareness. And if there's anybody else on that list that we need to know in the Native community, I'll get with Randy Ross and we can get those people notified and see if they'd like to come to our meeting. So that was a really positive addition to this. If there's more names that people would like us to contact, we can do that. So the more that are involved with this project, the better it is. So I think they're doing a great job. We're moving forward, and this is a positive step. Thank you, Randy and Daphne, for moving forward on this.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm certainly in favor of the motion on the floor. I think it's important for the record to show that ATA stands for the Alliance for Tribal Tourism Advocates, which is a statewide organization that has a history in the state of South Dakota of other projects. I know that it represents various tribes across the state of South Dakota, and it's an important organization encouraging tourism throughout the state of South Dakota, and this is one important step in forwarding an initiative that Randy Ross and myself and others in the community in the Cultural Plan, which was written in 1993, recommended movement toward an arts market for Lakota, the Plains Native people, and I think this is an excellent step forward as we look and put that into reality.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item number 35, if you would, please, Karen.
Item 35 is approved the selection of RBC as underwriter for issuance of bonds for water system improvements.
Let's go to Jim Preston. I think he has some revised language.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I request that the motion be authorize staff to enter into negotiations with RBC to provide underwriter services for financing water system upgrades.
That would be my motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the end of the consent calendar. We are on to the non-consent calendar, items 53 through 61. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 53 through 61 inclusive, please. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. We are open to public comment. First on the list up is item number 55, Vern Osterloo, Rapid City Regional Hospital.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. I filled out a speaker request form tonight to offer myself to answer any questions you may have while you're acting upon item number 55. Item number 55 is the amended ordinance which would allow sales of medical supplies and equipment rental as a conditional use in the office commercial district, zoning district. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Vern. We also have a speaker request form. Oops, and I'm sorry, we need to turn the lights on. We also have a speaker request form from Sydney Hanson, item number 61. Thank you. Yeah, Jim, you got everything loaded up there, Jim?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Hanson, if you would just identify yourself for the record, please.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the City Council for the opportunity to speak on item number 61. Why are we here? I've given you a handout, and I'll speak partly from that, but I just want to have a record that you can refer to, and I'll go over some handouts that are in there as well, and you'll see those in that handout, some presentation items. Hanson Heights property owners are seeking action on a City Council motion by the Public Works Committee at their May 18th, 2009 meeting. And the motion is to withdraw in order to install sidewalks on the east portion of East St. Patrick Street. You took this up at the May 18th meeting, and you lacked a sketch, and here's a sketch of what that shows. And if you look at the sketch, what you'll see is St. Patrick Street that runs along the at the bottom here. And then you'll see a yellowed area of lots 1 through 8. And then you'll see a break, and that is areas that covers the South City Tavern. You'll see lots 11 and 12. And those yellowed lots are lots that are owned by the owners of Hanson Heights, of which there are 6 owners. Also, there's on the edge of next to Hawthorne Avenue is a business place that is the Thrift Smoke Shop. And over on this far side, on this side, you'll see there's a shopping strip mall. The issue that we're addressing is the sidewalks on the north side of St. Patrick Street. Recall at your meeting of May 18th that there was a motion brought forth by the Public Works Committee with a second to withdraw the ordering of sidewalks on some 1,120 feet in the yellowed areas, plus the area that would be the tavern, to remove the or to withdraw the order of installing sidewalks. There was a substitute motion that was also entered at that time that extended the time allowment for implementing that order until the end of the year. It's a position of the property owners that there is an active motion on the floor for the City Council to act on, and we are looking for the City Council to take action on that. Substitute motion.
Mr. Hanson, if you could just, that is time, but I'll give you about 15 to 30 seconds to wrap it up, if you would, please.
I was not aware that I had just the 3 minutes.
Actually, all speakers, I announced that at the very beginning of the meeting that all speakers actually have 3 minutes when we time that, so if you could just wrap it up in the next 15 to 30 seconds, please.
I leave it to the presentation to look for you to look over. If you look to the summary page, on the summary page, the Hanson Heights property owners again are seeking action from the City Council on a vote that was a 3-2 at the Public Works Committee. With the chair being present in favor of that motion would have been a 4-1. We believe that the Public Works Committee, we demonstrated that the city did not show need. We also indicated that the property owners were not involved in any of the pre-discussion leading up to the ordering, and that the ordering of sidewalks is indeed unjust and is an unreasonable hardship upon the property owners. The amount that we're dealing with we believe to be on the order of about $35,000 by latest estimate from the Public Works. Again, we call upon the City Council to take up this issue and to bring it to a resolution. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. I do not have any additional speaker request forms on any of the items 53 through 61. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on any item 53 through 61 inclusive? Seeing none, the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next, go to item number 53. Alderwoman Olson, could you please read in item number 53?
Item number 53 is the first reading of ordinance number 5532, an ordinance regarding supplemental appropriation number 4 for 2009. My motion is for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 54, please.
Item number 54 is the second reading of ordinance number 5524, an ordinance revising conditional uses within the heavy industrial zoning district by amending section 17.24 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. My motion is for approval.
We have a motion second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 55, please.
Item number 55 is second reading of ordinance number 5530, an ordinance amending section 17.40.030 of the Rapid City Municipal Code by adding a new subsection 17.40.030L to allow sales of medical supplies and medical equipment rental as a conditional use in the office commercial zoning district. My motion is for approval.
Second. We have a motion second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 56, please.
Item number 56 is a request by Centerline Incorporated for PLM Land Development LLC for a layout plat on property located at the eastern terminus of Conestoga Court. And my motion on this item is for approval with stipulations.
We have a motion second for approval of stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 57, please.
Is authorize the staff to solicit requests for proposals for the Rapid City Parks restroom renovation project number PRO 90619. My motion is for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that this is RFP, but in the RFP, it talks about this property being LEED certified, or I don't have that RFP in front of me, but I was hoping that Jerry was going to be here today to explain that to us. And is there someone else that can?
Yes.
Oh,
Mr. Cole.
Okay. I seen Mr. Dominic.
He was hiding to the side. Mr. Cole, please identify yourself for the record, and you understand the question.
The LEED certification, I would like to propose to change that wording, and that's probably far beyond our reach with this renovation, as we discussed earlier. So if we could change that, I would like to do that now.
And what's your proposed language change?
If we could change meets LEED standards to it incorporates LEED principles where possible.
Okay. Alderman Weifenbach, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have an issue with that as long as we know what those items will be, and if there's cost differences that we understand what those will be too, and how it affects long-term, energy efficiency, or if there is savings or whatever involved. So, I mean, other than that, I don't see any issues with that. I just didn't understand the proposal. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you. I appreciate Alderman Weifenbach's concerns about the fiscal responsibility of this project, and I believe that this additional wording, do you want me to incorporate it into my motion, that it be included?
You could certainly do that.
I would.
That's your intent?
My intent is to include the wording that Mr. Cole has offered in regard to this project.
Is that all right with the seconder? Who is the seconder?
Honestly, don't know.
LaCroy? Is that all right with the seconder? Okay, very good. Thank you. Anything else, Alderwoman Olson? Okay, let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock. Whoops.
I guess I was in favor of that, where incorporate lead principles where feasible. Is that what we're going to basically say?
That is the motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. That does take us to Public Works Committee items. Item number 58, and Alderman Costello, could you please read an item 58, please?
Item 58 is to approve with staff stipulations a request by Spearlet Consulting Incorporated for Shriner Investments LLC to consider an application for a vacation of access and utility easement on a portion of the 66-foot wide access and utility easement in an area generally described as being located north of Enchantment Road and west of the eastern terminus of Stumer Road. And I move for approval with staff stipulations.
Second. We have a motion and a second for approval with stipulations. Just clarification, those stipulations would be from the Planning Commission, not staff. We always have to be a little bit careful. Yep, because staff can't have stipulations as much as they want them. Okay, the motion on the floor is for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Mr. Preston, the bids.
Dark. Thank you, Mayor. We have two bid items this evening. First one is the Milo Barber Transportation Center improvements. We received 4 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Seco Construction Incorporated to include the base bid and alternate 2 for a total price of $907,895.
We have a motion and a second to award the bid to Seco Construction for a total dollar amount of the base bid plus alternate 2, which would total $907,895. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderwoman Patty Martinson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I understand that this transportation center is has a grant. How will the money affect as far as the bid?
Yes, that is correct. We just announced last week, we got word there was approximately, what, help me out, Robert, $1,385,000?
That is correct.
Okay, why don't you explain how this will impact that project?
Absolutely, yes. We were fortunate enough to receive a grant. This is outside the ARRA funds, or the stimulus dollars. This is a separate grant administered through the Federal Transit Administration. It's a little over $1.3 million to help offset costs for this improvement, this bid here, and also some future improvements that we're planning in the upcoming months. There is a 20% local match that's required with those funds. So just kind of break out the numbers for you. If you go with the recommendation, staff's recommendation here of $907,895, local match will be just over $181,000, and the grant will cover the other $726,000. So we also have a couple of other projects you'll be seeing in the near future.
Very good. Patty, you still have the floor, ma'am. Anything else? Okay. And just for a point of clarification, the match is already identified through the CIP.
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is for approval to accept the bid from Seco Construction for a total dollar amount of $907,895. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Preston.
Second item is the Elm Avenue Reconstruction Phase 3 project. We received 4 bids as listed. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Heavy Constructors in an amount of $1,598,970.72.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the bid from Heavy Contractors for $1,598,970.72. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just noticed earlier on our agenda tonight with the consent calendar with items 11 and 12, they were a couple of change orders that decrease the amount of money going to Heavy Constructors. So I'd like for Robert to just explain a little bit what he thinks about recommending this bid in light of items number 11 and 12.
Let's go to Robert Ellis, our Public Works Director. Mr. Ellis.
Thank you. I will explain that Terry Larson of Heavy Constructors is here tonight as well. You're right, there were a couple of change order deducts that ultimately were the result of liquidated damages, essentially a project going beyond completion date on 2 of those projects that were acted on previously. Both of those were Heavy Constructor awarded contracts. This recommendation also is to award to Heavy Constructors. My hope is that we do complete this on time. I know that Terry's goal is to complete that on time too. It's to the betterment of the community, the citizens that live in that neighborhood, to have this completed on time. And I guess I have no reason to believe they won't.
Okay. Alderman Chapman, you still have the floor, sir.
Just wanted to highlight, and I just wanted to make sure that it was on record that our Public Works Director had at least addressed that, and that concern is not a major concern at this point in his mind, because we believe that the contractor will get the work done in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval of the bid from Heavy Constructors for $1,598,970.72. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to mayor's items. I do see we have a 60A. This was an update on the West Main Street study. I will let you know that had a meeting today with Robert Ellis, John Less, our traffic engineer. They will be bringing forward a recommendation. We'll have that ready for you at the next, Public Works meeting? Is that how you're bringing it through? Okay, next Public Works. We believe we have that. My intention, though, is before we actually announce it publicly what the intents are, we'd like to actually talk with the affected property owners so they're not reading about it in the Rapid City Journal. No offense for the Journal. But with that, I guess just a motion to acknowledge, and it will be coming forward at the next Public Works meeting. We have a motion and second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. I have a 70B budget schedule from Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I wanted to thank staff and the council members for the presentations they gave last week and going through their schedules to try and set up another the breakout sessions for the budget. As you know, we've got some difficult times this week, so we could not find time to do it this week with some people gone, and the dates that we did come up with is August 24th. Lunch will be served at 5, and we'll start at 5:30. So we're looking at Monday, August 24th, 5 o'clock, and we're going to notice the 24th, the 31st, or no, excuse me. August 31st is a Monday, so it'll be August 31st. Well, we're going to do the meeting, and we're going to notice September 1st, September 2nd, and September 3rd, in case the council would like to meet on those days. 2 of those dates, we have one council member who might not be able to make it, but those are the dates. And I just wanted to express my gratitude to the council for all the work that they've done. If they have any further questions that they would like.
Dates one more time. I believe the dates were the 31st of August, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of September is what will be noticed.
Yes.
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock for food. Meeting start at 5:30.
5:30 is the meeting.
Okay. Anything else?
And I just wanted to mention that council members have any additional questions to the packet that they've had, please don't hesitate to contact Mr. Chapman or myself so we can follow up on those questions. And Mr. Chapman and myself are working on an agenda for the August 31st meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. I guess just a motion to acknowledge.
So moved.
We have a motion and second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Well, we had 2. Any? Okay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. I didn't hear it, he knows. Okay. Item number 60, Alderman Malcolm Chapman and proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems as if this item has already been taken care of, but it was an item to have the mayor do a proclamation for an event August 28th at the band shell involving former Mayor Barnett and a potluck at, help me out on the time.
Let's see, I got to think about this. I know it's run through Sanity. I believe is it a 5 o'clock? I believe it's a 5 o'clock. We'll verify that. But yeah, it is a Sanity event sponsored.
Yes, August 28th in the evening. I don't have a time here listed, but
yep, I
and
believe
that proclamation has already been.
Proclamation is drafted, and I will forward a copy of that to all the council members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look for a motion to acknowledge.
So moved.
We have a motion, second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to council items and liaison reports. Item number 61, which is a request from Sid Hansen to reconsider an order to install sidewalks on that portion of East St. Pat Street, described basically with the legal there, and this was placed on the agenda by Alderman Kroger. Let's go to Alderman Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hansen had gotten a hold of me and had asked that I place this on the agenda. And then I heard this evening that it is on the agenda, but we can't discuss it, or we can't take action tonight. And I guess I'm a little disappointed that Mr. Hansen comes from Michigan and we can't do anything but listen to him speak, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm going to go to Jason Green, because we had this conversation this morning trying to figure out exactly what we could do with this item. Jason?
As Mr. Hansen indicated in his comments, the council took this item up on May 18th. And the council's action at that time was to stay enforcement of the order to install sidewalks until the end of the year. However, the council indicated it would consider revisiting that ordinance if there's a development plan brought forth by the applicant in the interim. So the only way this item can properly come before the council again is for either the year to expire or for Mr. Hansen to bring a development plan that would incorporate sidewalks in some fashion. Therefore, the item belongs to the council, not to any individual council member, so it would be inappropriate for the council to act on this as an alderman item.
Okay, very good. I'm going to go back to Alderman Kroger. You still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I don't know what to say. I was opposed to this originally, but I'm on Rapid Map right now, and I got an aerial on there, and I'm looking from Elm Street all the way down to St. Joe Street, and a majority of that does not have sidewalks on it. And I guess my question is, why would we force one individual to put sidewalks in and not force the rest of that whole area to put sidewalks in? So that's my question.
Thank you. We also have a light on from Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. Mr. Hansen, in his comments, challenged the council's decision by saying that the substitute motion that was placed on the floor and that was subsequently voted on was out of line according to the strict rules of Robert's rules. And I'd like for our city attorney to address that as opposed to the original motion that came out of Public Works. So if you could address that in terms of how the council deals with Robert's rules, and then I have another comment.
Okay, let's go to Jason Green, city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. As applied by the council, the motion, the substitute motion, really means to strike the entirety of the previous motion and insert something new. Robert's rules anticipates that you're talking about a specific document. The way the council and most other governing bodies that I'm familiar with handle that is by addressing the substitution to the motion that's on the floor before the body. Therefore, consistent with your practice, you have disposed of this item by virtue of the substitute motion that was made on May 18.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
I have another comment.
Alderman Chapman, you still have the floor, sir.
In going back and reading the minutes, I guess we stayed the motion until, or the action until the 31st, and asked the applicant to come back with some development plans. Does that necessarily mean that the applicant has to come back with development plans that include sidewalks, or could the applicant come back at some point with plans that said, my plans are still in the works right now? Because I think that there's a larger issue out there that the applicant is trying to do business with the state and others. So if the plans came back to say, we're not ready to develop yet, would that then mean that the applicant would not have to put sidewalks in at this point, or would the council take that issue up again at that time?
Let's go to Jason Green, city attorney.
I think the applicant has really three alternatives here. The first one is to install the sidewalks. Second one is to come forward with a development plan that addresses sidewalks in some way, whether it's by installation or subdivision variance or something else. The third would be to come back to the council after the first of the year and say, I'm still not ready to develop, I'd like some more time. And after the first of the year, then the council could take that up again.
Yep, go ahead, please.
If the applicant comes back after the first of the year, I mean, come our first meeting in January, I'm not sure of the date right now, the council is not just going to order in the sidewalks that day and not give the applicant an opportunity to come back to say whatever it is that he might want to say.
Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Actually, the council has already ordered in the sidewalks. What you've done to this point is stayed the enforcement of that order pending either the presentation of a development plan or the year expiring.
Just my last
Yep,
comment,
go
Mr.
ahead,
Mayor.
please.
I voted in favor of ordering in the sidewalks at that time. I mean, after reading some of the information, I have some concerns about that, and I'd like to give the applicant an opportunity to come back. I agree with Alderman Kroger that, you know, the applicant has traveled here from Michigan thinking that, you know, he would, our rules are our rules, and I support the rules that are on the table tonight. But the next time this item is on the agenda, I would like for the applicant to be able to address it in its totality and have some resolution of it at that time, whenever that would be then. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Jason, did you have any further comments?
Just a couple comments. The first would be that, as you're aware, at council meetings, there is a time limit on comment from the public, but there is not at your committee meetings. So I would recommend that the applicant start at the committee meetings through your usual process. The other comment I would make is that I think it's very unlikely that the Public Works Department is going to be out on the 1st of January hiring a contractor to start installing the sidewalk. I don't think the process would even start, given the council's direction, until sometime after the 1st of the year. So I suspect there would be plenty of time, even before your second meeting in January, if that worked better for the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Alderman Chapman? Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to Alderman Kroger's observation on a rapid map that he seemed that it was between Elm and St. Joe there were no sidewalks. From personal experience, I know there are sidewalks along the north side of that street, and from looking at a rapid map, they terminate on the east side at Hawthorne. There's just sidewalk in some shape or form, whether it's part of a paved parking lot or legit sidewalk. I didn't get to the west side as I was scrolling across, but just for information.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Chair would look for a motion to acknowledge. I think that's the only motion that we can offer.
Second.
We have a motion, second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. With two noes or just one no? Okay, one no from Alderman Kroger. Thank you, everyone. Okay, that does take us to the public hearing items. This is items 62 through 73. 62 through 73. The chair would look for motion to open the public hearing on items 62 through 73 inclusive.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. We are, let's see. We do have a number of speaker request forms. Let's see. Troy Erickson on items 65 and 71. There again, please keep in mind, 3 minutes. Just watch the light if you would, please. Troy, if you'd identify yourself for the record, please.
Presenting MG Oil Company, and I'm just here to answer any questions. I guess there might be some opposition to the conditional use permit on the alcohol license transfer. So if there's anything that comes up, I'm just here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That was items 65 and 71. And just for a reminder to the council, we will be taking item 71 up first to be followed immediately by item 65. That's the protocol we need to follow. Also have a speaker request form on item number 70 from George Brown. Mr. Brown. George, if you just please identify yourself for the record, please.
Sure. George Brown, 335 Cleveland. And of course, I'd like to speak briefly about the fence. I've afforded all of you copies of national surveys about health issues and real estate issues. Pretty convincing parts of that are the health issues. And that's a big concern to me, having lived at that residence of mine for 48 years. And in that length of time, the residents in 5 different homes have had cancer prevalent in their homes, including mine. So consider that when you talk about the fence tonight. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Kevin Lewis, item number 70. And there again, Kevin, if you'd identify yourself for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Lewis. I live at 343 Cleveland. It's the house that Black Hills Power would like to acquire. Tonight we're talking about the fence. The fence will not go up unless the project goes through. I won't be putting a fence up around my house like this unless this project goes through. So tonight we're focusing on the fence. I've lived there for 12 years. I have 2 boys that have grown up there. They're both honor students and pretty good kids, even though they're teenage boys. So, but I don't have any. I've lived there 12 years, and I would ask the council to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Stephen Dunn, item number 70. There again, Mr. Dunn, if you just identify yourself for the record.
Stephen Dunn from Black Hills Power. Those of us representing Black Hills Power would like to express our appreciation to the mayor, city council members, city staff, as well as the substation neighbors for their time, efforts, and patience throughout this process. The topic for the council tonight is the fence height exception. The approval process this far has kind of narrowed the fence material down to a design that we believe provides a proper balance between functionality and aesthetics. Some of the design specifics include it would surround the outside perimeter of the entire substation, be constructed of wrought iron. The corner and gate posts would be constructed of a brick or a concrete. The fence would be approximately 8 feet tall, which provides the security that we're looking for from a fence. Not to mention, this design was suggested by substation neighbors as a suitable application. With that said, we understand that there are other aspects of the substation expansion that need to be addressed before you guys can make an informed decision on the fence height. We're going to touch on a couple of those things. Some background information. Black Hills Power Engineering Department and our Distribution Planning Department has determined that this area be an area of concern based on the loading of the area, in addition to the age and the type of equipment in the substation. We feel our proposed design and proposed location will address these needs efficiently. That's based on the fact that the location would be at the load center, has access to transmission lines, and is a starting point for distribution feeders. All of these items need to be considered when determining whether or not a site is suitable for a distribution substation. Some design specifics. It's a low-profile design intended on reducing or minimizing the visual impact on the neighborhood. All the transmission distribution lines coming into and out of the substation will be installed underground. The underground transmission design, that's something we're not accustomed to. We feel like that's one thing that would be appropriate for this situation. Off-street parking, 1 control building instead of 2 presently on site, a visually appealing fence, which I just went over, a few things that Mark Sarda will discuss here shortly, including noise levels equal to or less than what's existing there, and extensive landscaping. One important thing to make note of is that the equipment at this site needs to be upgraded. Whether it's done on the proposed site or not, that doesn't change the fact that something has to be done on this site.
That would be time if you could just wrap up in the next 15 to 30 seconds.
One more sentence. We feel as though the proposed design and location combination together will address the needs of our customers the most effective, cost-effective, and least intrusive way possible given the circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Terry Sharist. Can I get the mic close? Terry, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Terry Shrest. I own the property right across the street from where they are proposing to put up the fence. And I just wanted to say that I'm not in favor of this fence. For one thing, I think it's going to take away from the residential area. I'm concerned about the safety of the whatever they're going to put up. They haven't really told us, so we know that something is coming. But I've operated a daycare for 14 years in this home, and I'm a little bit concerned about the effects that it could have there. So I just wanted to go on record as saying that I hope you would take that into consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Also have a speaker request form from Ed Thompson, item number 70. Mr. Thompson, please identify yourself for the record, please.
Yeah, Ed Thompson. I live next to Terry and across the street from the Browns, and I would just like to point out, again, I've made my points in past meetings that we're against this. Most of the neighbors are against this. I don't feel it's the proper place for the fence or the development. I'd like the council to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Mark Zaccarda. Did I get that right, Mark?
Close.
Close.
I'm Mark Sarda with Black Hills Power. Obviously, even though the item before the council this evening is regarding the fence height exception, we also understand there are some other issues, that keep coming up, concerns with the neighbors. We've tried to take those concerns into effect when we did the design for the project, and we've worked with the staff, city staff, from day one on this project, and all the information that Stephen presented and myself this evening is part of public record and was previously submitted. Just to bring up a couple of issues I know have been discussed prior, is one of them is the alternate sites. One of the prime ones that we looked at originally was St. Thomas More had a site. They would not sell, wouldn't even consider it. Corner of 7th and Cleveland was another site. Planning Commission told us they prefer us not to be in that location because, again, another neighborhood. We looked at the one across from McDonald's that the neighbors have proposed. There's a large drainage ditch there. Site would not allow construction of the facility. Distance to the underground and connections would be almost impossible and very costly. Plus, it's a very high visible traffic area for the city. I don't think that's a location that would be viable for a substation. Another item that we keep talking about is noise. Black Hills Power's plans on purchasing some of the low noise transformers for this particular project at a premium price. The positioning of the transformers within the yard have been repositioned, which will reduce the noise level, and we believe that the current new facility will actually have a lower noise level than the current facility that's sitting there. Visibility is the other thing. We've gone a long ways to try to lower the profile, as Stephen said, take some of the steel that's up in the air out of the air, and we've actually hired a landscape architect. I'm not sure how this works here, but turn it over.
Nope. Top. You were right the first time. Mark. Yep. Face up. Except you're upside down.
All right. Thank you. This is a view of the site that exists now. From the top view is Fish Street. The other one's Cleveland Street. Shows some of the high steel up in the air. That'll come out. The transmission line going up to the right of the picture or south on the project will come out due to the transmission line being removed. And then obviously the landscape, again, we intend on, it's kind of hard to see, but visually irrigated property, shrubs, trees, and really try to beautify the area in the corner, keeping safety in mind on the corner, visual site triangle, and just doing what we can to really blend the fence and the whole project into the area. So we just recommend that the city council approves the fence exception so we can get on with the technical issues with the planning commission. Thank you much.
Very good. Good timing. Aida Compton, item number 70. There again, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Aida Compton, and I'm a resident at 319 Cleveland Street. And I hate to have to jump around so many topics with only 3 minutes, but I just want to address a couple of things that have been brought up. I'm really glad that I came after that picture. It looks like a beautiful prison. It would be a beautiful prison, but we are a neighborhood We are not an industrial area, and that's what this is going to turn into. I challenge you, Mr. Sarda, to figure out a way to make Cleveland Street and Mount Rushmore work. So all the engineers that you have in your department, I think you can figure out a way. I, for one, contracted breast cancer 4 years ago. I don't know if I'm in the list of 5 people who live near the Browns, but when it was discovered, it was very aggressive, stage 3. I'm 3 years after my treatment, and I sure don't want to have to go through that again. We are vehemently opposed to the location of this site. There's not very many people here tonight because this keeps getting continued and continued and continued. I believe this started maybe 2-3 months ago, but people in this neighborhood are elderly, they're tired, they have activities in the summer, and they can't keep coming to these meetings all the time, and I challenge you to say no. I am going to try and send out a mailing to my neighbors and have the neighbors put up a little sign in their window that says, say no. And it's the color of that green light, and it's going to say no, and it's going to have that beautiful picture of the fence that's around that thing that they want to put in our neighborhood, which none of you would want 2 or 3 houses down from your place. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Corey Singsas. Singsas. Mike Bluffs.
Hi, Corey Singsas. I live across the street from the proposed site. I am against the fence because it's a stepping stone to a huge substation in the middle of our neighborhood, and all of us don't want that, and I don't think many people would, so I hope you vote accordingly. Thanks.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Peggy. And Peggy, my apologies, I cannot read your last name. Was it? Okay, very good. 224 Cleveland Street, item number 70.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm very much opposed also to this fence plan, even though I live down the street from them. I want to bring up the fact that the pictures that they showed are very, very beautiful, but have you ever tried to cross the road on Cleveland to get onto 5th Street? Especially if you're going to go to the left and go up the hill. It's very difficult at times to get out on that road because of the traffic from the Catholic Church and from the hospital. Now that we're going to have a fence, you're going to have trees, you're going to have more obstruction, so it's going to be even harder to see cars coming from that direction. You're going to be having a hard time seeing people coming down the hill on bicycles, on the bicycle path. I also sympathize with people who live directly in that area, especially for the lady with the daycare center, because I personally would not be taking my child to that daycare because of the high exposure of electricity and the possible risk of cancer. Thus, I'm afraid that her business is going to be going out, and she's been there forever, and I've heard nothing but good things about her daycare. My suggestion is why don't you take it down the street on 5th, on Minnesota? There's plenty of empty land there. It also would serve as expanding for Rapid City in the future so that you have a place to grow if you bought extra land there. And you can also look at the fact that maybe you can put in some wind services or wind electricity. And that would just be my suggestion. Is I definitely say no, I do not want this in my area. I've lived in that area all my life, and I don't want to see this ugly thing coming in. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have a speaker request form. I believe it's Richard Horton on item 68, 69, and 72. 333 Florman. Couldn't quite, is it Horton? I can't quite make out.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Richard Horton, and I live at 333 Florman. Behind my house would be where they want to put the parking lot, and I want to say that I have no problem with the parking lot. I like his drawings that he showed me. My only issue is the drainage and the dust control. Right now, the water's supposed to drain from Meade Street to Florman and down, but it doesn't. It turns and it goes down the alley, which would be, I would think, to the east, towards the church, which has overlaid their parking lot. So the water traps right there, and we got a huge puddle. So I think if we are going to build this, we need to make sure that we have the drainage And I think the only way to do it would be to pave the alley and V it so that it does go from Mead to Florman and down. Other than that, I have no problems with the proposal. It really looks good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Edward Lynch, 1016 Enchantment Road, item 68, 69, and 72.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Edward Lynch. I'm the dentist that owns the property that we're trying to rezone and get parking there. I've been in this neighborhood as a professional for 17 years. There's been commercial property there since the 1940s with Remfers Market. Many of the neighbors that are in that area are patients that I am able to serve. I'd like to remain in this neighborhood as a dentist, but I need to do some expansion. We've complied with the requests of the staff and done a PCD to assure that that property is in fact used for parking, and would have to come back to the council if there was any desired changes by someone in the future. I'm not planning on changing it. We have met with the neighbors on 2 different occasions. I've talked to all of the adjacent landowners that abut that property, and 9 of them are totally in favor of it, like Mr. Horton. And that includes the person that abuts my office, as well as the family that abuts the parking lot, are not opposed to it. And I've talked with Richard Horton and the neighbors that are on that north-south segment, and we've come to an agreement on that in terms of trying to pave that entire north-south segment in order to address the drainage concerns as well as dust concerns that they've had. I would ask for your support in passing these 3 items. I do have some a signed petition, as well as some letters from a couple of the neighbors, including Mr. Horton, that I would like to give you at this time.
You know, just take them down here. We'll pass them down.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Michael's, must be Stanley, item 68, 69, and I'm probably 72. You had 71 down.
Oh, sorry, yeah, 72. Mike Stanley with Dream Design International, 528 Kansas City Street. We've been working, our office has been working with Dr. Lynch on this project now for quite a while, and both Hanny and I are here if you have any questions. Before the drainage was brought up on the subject, and we are addressing that through the design of the project. So any questions, just let us know. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We also have one last speaker request form, item number 71, Mario Rangel, item number 71. There again, if you just identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Mario Rangel, and I'm a owner of the property across the street from the proposed on-sale liquor establishment. And I guess we just wanted to voice our objection to passing this, mainly because we've invested in this in the property across the street long term. We see a lot of potential for this area of the city, being one of the few exits off of the interstate into Rapid City. And while I know it may be a long shot to stop the development by MG Oil, I just want to express our hopes that the city will be supportive of business development in that area. That is a hub zone area, historically underutilized business zone, as advertised and supported by the SBA. Hub zone businesses do get benefits working with the federal government, and we have had interest from different businesses to come within our facility that we have built. And some of the concerns that they have addressed to us have been, how do I say this? I guess basically having people who are intoxicated walking across the property, or concerns with their safety being within our establishment there. And so again, we assure them that the neighboring property owners have been very supportive of our development there. In fact, when we have had graffiti on our fence that we were required to construct a couple of times, and the neighboring property owners were very quick to call us and help us get that cleaned up. So the property owners there take great pride in their area of town. We take great pride in it. We are locating our business within that building. I am the president of Wrangell Construction Company, and we have had one of the city's largest professional firms express an interest in leasing out the remainder of our building. And I believe that throughout time that the city can support what I believe to be more positive development on that street. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any additional speaker request forms on any item 62 through 73. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to any item 62 through 73 inclusive? If not, we'll move on. Just a reminder, at this point, we do leave the public hearing open until we get through a couple items here. That does take us to the continued public hearing consent calendar. This is item 62 through 64 inclusive. Chair would ask if any items 62 through 64 inclusive need to be pulled from the consent calendar. Seeing none, Chair would look for a motion to approve items 62 through 64 inclusive per the recommendation continuation dates as advertised.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. That does end our continued public hearing consent items. Chair would look for a motion to close the public hearing items 62 through 73.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. That does take us to the consent public hearing items 65 and 66. I think we'll just read those in. Just a reminder, we need to pull item number 65. It will be moved to immediately follow item number 71. So I am just going to ask that Alderwoman Olson read in item number 66, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 66, a resolution levying assessment for cleanup of miscellaneous properties. My motion would be for approval.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We are on to the non-consent public hearing items. This is items 67 through 73. And the chair, let's see here, let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello. Would you please read in item number 67, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 67 is a request by the City of Rapid City to consider an application for an amendment to the comprehensive plan to adopt the comprehensive preservation plan. And I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 68, please.
Item 68 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for an amendment to the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from residential to office commercial with a planned commercial development located at 336 Meade Street. I yield to the floor.
Move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Just I want to make sure. Planning Commission's recommendation was for denial. Is that correct, Bob?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Is that the motion you wanted to make?
No.
Okay. Did you want to move the recommendation per the Planning Commission, which was the recommendation for denial?
No, my motion was for approval with a PCV.
Okay. And is that all right with the seconder? I just want to make sure we're on board. Okay, is that right? Okay. The motion on the floor is for approval of a request to amend the adopted comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from residential to office commercial with the planned commercial development located at 336 Meade Street. Okay, everyone clear on the motion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Bob?
If I may, if we're talking about approving this, we have some stipulations that staff would like to present for this.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Let's take a couple lights here and just remind me, wave at me before, if we go to a vote on this motion, we'll make sure we get those stipulations noted. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
I guess my question for the mayor would be, do the stipulations need to be a part of the discussion before we open it to the floor?
Bob, what's your recommendation? Tell you what, go ahead and read them in.
There's 13 of them.
Then
There's
just-
13 of them. Do
I got
you have
handouts.
copies?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you pass the copies around?
And are they reflected in the linked items?
I don't believe so.
There's quite a few, well, there's 8 of them. So there's a few more. Okay, thank you. I still have some comments, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
the floor is still your man. It's your man. Go ahead, Karen.
Having been a part of the discussion in regard to this property and having been at the Planning Commission when this item was talked about, I've had a lot of opportunity to look very seriously at this item. And I'm not in favor of the motion on the floor. I will acknowledge that Dr. Lynch has been a good community neighbor. If you drive by his property, it is very well kept. He's consistently been a good neighbor to the community that surrounds him. And I do appreciate the fact that as we move forward a discussion about the 20-minute walking community, Dr. Lynch fits into this category. And that's a good thing. But I also know from listening to the future land use discussion that what we are doing is moving across the alley, which has been, the alley is to the east, and that alley has been really serving as a divider for the rest of the neighborhood. And this is a residential neighborhood. And my personal view is that that divider is an important thing to be kept in place, and turning it into a parking lot will not serve the long-term needs of this neighborhood. As I've served on the council, one of the discussions that has become increasingly important to us is housing of moderate and low income. And this is a neighborhood with moderate housing, but it is a neighborhood that remains strong and viable. And I personally, and the Future Land Use Committee, felt strongly that adding this additional parking lot to the east begins an intrusion into this neighborhood of small but well-kept homes. And for those of you who have looked at housing and the need for housing in our community, preserving existing houses is an important part of preserving quality neighborhoods. And so for that reason, as a member of the Future Land Use Committee, I did not support the idea of expanding, even with the PCD, across the alley into this neighborhood. I understood well that the neighbors immediately adjacent to Dr. Lynch are very happy with Dr. Lynch as a neighbor. I think Future Land Use is saying, what happens in 10 years or 15 years when ownership of this property changes? What could potentially be at this site other than a dental office? And that would be the concern that Future Land Use, and which I personally had concern about. So I will not be voting in favor of the motion on the floor, and I believe strongly that denial is the appropriate action to take to preserve this neighborhood adjacent to Fifth Street, which is increasingly being intruded upon in a whole lot of ways through heavier traffic, increased activity. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix. Just let me ask the obvious question. Did you wish to incorporate these 13 recommendations into your motion?
Yes, that was,
okay.
That was my intent.
Is that all right with the seconder? Is there any objection from anyone on the council? Yes. Okay. Then what we'll do is, I'm going to let Alderman LaCroix speak, but what we'll need is someone, if the intent is to actually pass this with us, we're going to need to take up an amendment to the motion on the floor. But let me go to Alderman LaCroix. Unfortunately, you can't do that. Someone else will have to do that. So let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess that was my intent, but I did want to point out to Mr. Orton that part of that stipulation does have to do with the drainage, and it means something to me when the property owner, I think Mr. Orton's been there for 25 plus years, has worked with Mr. Lentz on this, and so that was why I think the PCD addresses the problems that they had it out there, and so I would support a motion with the PCD. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my objection is I just got these things, and I'm trying to read through them, and I don't know if the applicant even has looked at these yet. And so my question for Hanny would be is, have you seen these stipulations, Hanny? Or
Hanny?
Dr. Lynch or whoever?
Hanny, have you seen the 13?
No, sir. This is our first time seeing them. We don't have any issue with the stipulations except for stipulation number 1. We just read through them and discussed them with the client.
Thank you.
Ron,
you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask Hanny if he has any problems with any of these stipulations, and particularly number 1.
Very good. Hanny.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing.
For stipulation number 1, we have actually provided in the PCD process a layout of the parking lot, and we hope that the council will approve the layout of the parking lot as shown in the PCD, which is one of the items. That layout does not comply with stipulation number 1, which is 12 feet of setback from the property line to the parking lot. The layout is actually the only way that could efficiently make that site fit a parking lot without having to make it like very ineffective.
Hanny, let me ask the obvious question. Your layout, how far from the property line is that?
Okay. I think it is 6 feet from the property line.
Okay, very good. Alderman Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just...
Yeah, 1.6 to... I'm sorry, what?
6.25 depending on...
Yes, so it varies from one corner to the other in the parking lot. We have the fence and shrubs surrounding the parking lot to make sure that the lights and the noise are minimized to the neighbors.
And I think there's probably a fence involved, but I just got this and was trying to read it, and I mean... And I had a question on number 6. It says prior to issuance of a building permit, an exception shall be obtained to allow an alley to serve as a principal means of access, or the site plan shall be revised to comply with the street design criteria manual. So I guess my question to Mr. Dominic is, well, how does that work?
Bob?
City ordinance and the design criteria require that a principal access be off of a public street, not an alley. Basically, staff would support this because that would make more sense to come off of that alley rather than the street.
Well, that's the point I'm making, but here we're trying to just...
That's very easy to come by. That's
So we can get rid of number 6, or?
No. In order to do that, there would have to be an exception granted. I think that's what they're stating.
So then, even if we approve this, and we'd have to come back and approve an exception for them, even this plan to even be feasible.
Bob?
The exceptions are approved by staff. Those do not go to planning commission, any committee, or city council.
So I don't understand. I mean, if your recommendation basically was to deny it, but you have a stipulation on here that you approve, so you can just deny it and this doesn't work.
Planning commission, excuse me.
Go ahead, Bob.
Planning commission recommendation was to deny.
What was the staff's recommendation?
I don't have that in front of me right now to really.
Well, the reality
I'm sure
is,
it was denied because of the Fifth Street overlay.
Yep.
So, all right, I have an issue with number 6, and then number 8. Prior to issuance of a building permit, a drainage plan shall be submitted for review and approval to ensure that development does not create any adverse drainage impacts. Okay, so an adverse drainage impact, or actually, can we stipulate in there that it addresses the problem they have already? Because I thought this may be somewhat of a answer to some of the problem they're having over there in that anyway, in that drainage area. So, and then number 11, a minimum of 8,280 landscaping points shall be provided and irrigated as identified in the approved landscaping plan. All landscaping shall be continually maintained in a live vegetative state and replaced as necessary. I thought our city had made several steps to try to eliminate some of this, and maybe I don't know how many 8,280 points is. Maybe it's not like making a whole, golf course or something. But I guess I'd just like to have Mr. Dominic kind of tell me what that consists of.
Okay, Bob, go ahead.
An answer to number 8, as I understand where the problem was further to the east of this property. That would be off-site And the only drainage that we're concerned with at this point for this project is the drainage coming off of that parking lot. And as I understand it, they have adequately addressed that. I believe most of these stipulations have already been taken care of in their plans that they have submitted. These are just stipulations that they're pretty standard. Number 11, the landscape points, those have been met.
Okay. Thank you. Ron, you still have the floor, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure how to handle this. I'd like for him to be able to move forward with the project. Obviously, the only concerns I've seen from any of the neighbors was the drainage. I've had the fortunate ability to live in that neighborhood and understand what Mr. Lynch has done with that property. I believe that he's actually probably somewhat made that neighborhood a little bit better place to live with his addition to his building and the way he's landscaped it and taken care of it. And I would imagine that he would probably continue to do that in the same way, even with this parking lot and being able to landscape it and look nice. But if number 1 doesn't work for them and number 6, I mean, if the staff recommended to deny it and now they're going to be able to give the exception, I can't imagine that this would go forward. So I have an issue with number 1 and number 6, and I'll yield to my colleagues.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. When I look at the staff report, Bob, in April '09, there was strong neighborhood opposition or concern relating to a number of things. What changed between the last application and this application? Because it doesn't appear to be that there's any neighborhood opposition anymore.
Bob, can you speak to that, or?
I'm sorry, but I can't.
Okay.
I don't know what did change.
If I could ask the applicant or his representative that question.
Mr. Lynch? You understand the question, sir?
Yes, I think I do. Part of that is that we had the 2 community meetings and met with all the neighbors to explain what we were doing and what our intention was with that parking area, and that it was going to be staff and employee parking, so there wasn't going to be as much in and out as there would in the main parking lot where the patients would come in, as well as me meeting with them individually.
Yeah, thank you. Sam, you still have the floor, sir.
So, Dr. Lynch, it's my understanding that there's no one in opposition at this point that's voiced their concern.
I can't say that. There's 2 people that are opposed. There's one lady immediately across the street that was concerned about, because that's a walkway for kids for going to South Park Elementary, and that was what I discussed with her in terms of that it's not going to be as much in and out there. And then there's another lady that's one house removed that's concerned, but her objections were the noise on 5th Street, the helicopters on 5th Street, the sirens on 5th Street, and those are things that I have, shouldn't have
hopefully you
anything
don't
to do with me. So, yeah.
Mayor,
Alderman Quaker.
Dr. Lynch, I'm sorry, one
That's
more.
okay.
So your plan then is to tear down that little house and run a parking lot all the way to the other end of that lot?
Correct.
And then you are going to pave the alley how far?
Well, that was what I said is talking with all of the neighbors, I've come up with an agreement with them that we'll do that entire north-south segment in order to help the drainage, make sure that's not an issue, and the dust, because that was also another one of their issues.
Okay. So now I have a follow-up question then for Bob Dominant from Growth Management.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. So part of this area is zoned neighborhood commercial. Is that correct?
That's what I understand, yes.
And neighborhood commercial is a more restrictive zoning designation than office commercial, or less restrictive?
Bob?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I'm not sure.
I think it's more restrictive, but based upon the uses, it could be interpreted either way.
Well, the question is that if neighborhood commercial is more restrictive, which I believe it is, then why couldn't we allow for a neighborhood commercial rezoning of that lot instead of office commercial, which would then mitigate any concern 15, 20 years down the line? If I could ask the applicant
Sure.
or his representative that question.
Sure. Whoever wants to answer that.
Neighborhood commercial does not allow a parking lot to be done by itself as a separate unit, and office commercial does, and that's why we had to go with office commercial rather than neighborhood commercial. And that's what the PCD is for, so that it can't be changed from parking to anything else without approval by the council. So that kind of mitigates that office commercial zoning and makes it so that it's only parking.
Okay. Annie, did you have something to add specifically to that topic?
Yeah, if I may add to that, to Dr. Lynch's comments, the neighborhood commercial will allow retail, which may have extended working hours. Office commercial will have limited and will not allow retail, so it will have a lot less traffic and less working hours, especially in the evenings.
Okay, Alderman Quaker, you're still before, sir.
So Claire, I'm going to offer an amendment in just a moment, but I need a clarification on item number 1. And so the distance is 6.25 feet and not 12, right?
I don't believe. What was the minimum? The question for either the applicant or his engineer: what is the minimum distance you need per your drawings from the lot line?
At the turnaround, there's approximately a 4.5. From the parking stalls, there's approximately 6 feet.
So it'd have to be 1.5 feet.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
And before I offer this amendment, is in terms of that distance requirement, is that neighbor have any issues with this going from 12 feet to 6? Do they have any concerns in general?
Okay. Who can answer? Okay, Mr. Lynch?
I've talked to those property owners, and they're aware of that. I showed them all the diagrams, and we've gone through that, and they're not opposed to it.
Not opposed to the 12 or the 6?
The 6. Well, it varies from 1.5 to about 6.25.
So the 1.5 foot. If you're looking to amend, I believe you need to have a minimum of 1.5 feet to make this. I believe what they're saying to make this work.
Okay, I'll yield at this time.
Okay, very good. I see a number of lights here, and I'm going to tell you, we can certainly talk this through, but it's somewhat unusual to have 13 stipulations dropped on the council at the last minute and then expect us to approve something tonight. Let's take some additional comments. Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I visited the site and also just reading over the plans, drainage was a concern of mine as well, and it's interesting that got brought up by the neighbors. My question is for the project engineers. With stipulation 6 addressing the drainage, how feasible do you envision it to be? If I understand correctly, runoff for any area can be calculated by a drainage coefficient or a runoff coefficient. Would you envision the possibility to actually decrease the runoff coefficient of this area through landscaping or other means?
Hanny?
There is not going to be any reduction in the coefficient. The thing that we altered or we changed are two things. Number one, the drainage currently goes to the east across a neighboring lot, which is actually currently is a problem. So we lifted that side, which is the northeast side of the lot, and we had to put about a couple of foot retaining wall to achieve that. We drain it to the alley, and that's where the paving of the alley will be in a V-ditch to handle that flow. The other thing that we looked at, which is basically the landscaping area, to have the water go into the landscaping area and then back into the alley to make sure that the water quality, as far as stormwater runoff, is maintained, and also to cut down some of that runoff to slow it down.
And I'm going to go back to Alderman Costello and let him finish his remarks. But as soon as he's done, I'm going to look for a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to look for a motion to amend, because we're discussing an awful lot of things that are actually not part of the motion that's currently on the floor. So we're either going to need to get to the amendment, vote on the amendment, or vote to continue it, or vote to either approve it or deny it as the original motion. With that, I'm going to let Alderman Costello finish his motion or his discussion, and then I'm going to look for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep my comments in line. Dr. Lynch, I'd like to ask you a question if I could, a couple. First, just the overall driving factor. What's driving your desire to expand your business here?
I need more space in my practice.
Okay. And you said that the majority of your How many, if you could just guess, I assume, of your patients are from the neighborhood itself, the surrounding area?
Dr. Lynch?
Probably within a 4-block radius, maybe 15 or 20.
Okay. If you are not allowed to expand your business here, what options are you considering?
I don't know at this stage, because in order for me to move forward at all, I have to hire a specialty architect who does nothing but dental offices, and that's going to run me about $30,000 to $50,000, and I kind of wanted to know where I was going before I made any additional inquiries.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, there again. Next up, Deb, I don't know, you have the next slide. Did you want to offer any kind of a motion? I'm going to look for motion, so we're actually talking about the motion on the floor.
Actually, number one, I'd like to amend that.
Okay.
I need the applicant's help on what that amendment should be so it fits the need of this parking lot.
Deb, let me make a recommendation.
Okay.
I think he actually what you would have to need, what you'd really need to do is amend it to include all the stipulations as presented by the staff, with the exception of item number 1, which would read a minimum 1.5 foot distance from the between the parking lot and the residential lot directly to the east of the property. I think that's, you'd need to amend it with all 13 and the inclusion of that language in number 1.
That would be my motion.
Okay.
And then
Second.
just,
Okay. We have a motion and a second to amend.
Can I
Discussion on the amendment motion.
Okay.
Alderwoman Hadcock, you have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate that we got to that part. I think this is a positive for the neighborhood. I think he's been a good neighbor, and it shows by the community meetings that it does make a difference to talk to your neighbors, so I appreciated that. I would caution council members of telling people moderate low-income areas. Sometimes that's offensive to me when I live in a $100,000 house, but I own about 5 other properties in Rapid City. So if we're judging by people's houses and where they live and what they live in, that shouldn't be based on your income or if it's moderate or low income. Just caution people on what they're saying about neighborhoods, that this is my neighborhood and my ward, and I just appreciate when people are visiting about these areas that it's about the issue and not about the income levels. And that would be my motion. I just thought I'd fit that in because it's positive for me to talk about the issue and keep it positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we also have Alderwoman Karen Olson. Just a reminder, the motion on the floor is the motion to amend. We're going to restrict discussion only to that amendment at this point. Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Sorry, Mayor, I needed to withdraw.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman. Someone want to find Malcolm? Alderman Malcolm Chapman. The motion on the floor is the motion to amend. So if we could just limit our discussion to the motion to amend, please.
I apologize for that. My question or concern, I don't think I have a problem with approval of this, but I just think it's poor policy for the council to get such a large amount of stipulations or any document thrown at us at the last minute, and then here we are trying to decide what makes sense and what doesn't make sense here from the dais. I do have a question for the applicant. If we continue this item, where does that put you in terms of your process?
Dr. Lynch?
At this stage, I'd like to be able to start moving forward. I started this process in April, and we're still continuing forward. I guess I would prefer not to, but I don't know how to answer you otherwise. I'm not.
Okay.
Would another 2 weeks set you back so much that you're not going to get this done still this year, this summer?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Just a comment. I won't offer a motion to continue, but I just think that in the future, when we're going to get items that could impact the decision to be made, I think either this should come prior to and say if the council decides to not vote the way the Planning Commission recommended, that at least we have this document so it can be reviewed and questions can be asked prior to getting to this point. It's just hard, I think, to make these sorts of decisions from the dais.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is to amend. Discussion on the amendment motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
My question is, I just want to make sure I understand. The paved alley goes from Meade Street to the alley that runs east and west, or all the way to Florman?
Dr. Lynch, do you understand the question?
Yeah, on the plan, the PCD, it shows it to the east-west, but I've come to a verbal agreement with the other neighbors to extend that all the way.
So it would go an entire block?
Correct. That's the intent.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is a motion to amend, and the motion to amend would be to adopt all 13 stipulations as presented by staff, with the one change in item number 1, which would read to provide a minimum 1.5 feet distance between the parking lot and the residential lot directly to the east. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We do have a motion on the floor that has been amended. So the motion on the floor is the amended motion, which is to recommend the motion to approve with stipulations, and those stipulations would be the 13 that are in front of you with the change to item number 1. Everyone clear on that motion? Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes with 1 no from Alderwoman Olson. Thank you, everyone. That was item number 68. We are on to item number 69. If you could please read that in, Mr. Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 69 is a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for a planned commercial development, initial and final development plan, the South Boulevard addition, located at 336 Meade Street. I yield to the floor.
Approval with steps. Whoops.
Nope, no, you can't put steps on this. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Bob, did you have anything?
Just a clarification, these stipulations were for item 69, the planned commercial development, initial and final development.
That's what we did.
68 was a comp plan amendment.
Okay.
Move to reconsider item 68.
Okay, my obvious question, why was it handed out when item 68 was on the floor?
Because we were discussing all 3 items.
No, we were discussing item number 68. There was no discussion that we were taking up all 3 items. Okay, we have a motion to reconsider item number 68. We have a motion and second. Any discussion on the reconsideration motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Chair will look for a motion to approve item number 68 with no stipulations. We have a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item number 60, and with 1 no, Alderwoman Karen Olson. Item number 69, we would look for a motion to approve with stipulations per the recommendation of staff with the change item number 1 to read 1.5 feet, replacing the 12-foot distance between the parking lot and the residential lot located directly east of the property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 70, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 70 is a request by Stephen Dunn for Black Hills Power for a fence height exception to allow an 8-foot high fence with barbed wire in the low-density residential district. Located on the east side of 5th Street between Cleveland and Oakland Street, and I yield to the floor.
Okay, could we have a motion, please? What's that? Well, yeah, the barbed wire is now out of the equation, but we still need a motion on the floor for discussion.
May I offer a motion?
Yes, you can make.
For discussion, I'll offer a motion for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval for discussion. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
In looking at making this rather difficult decision, the one thing I did wonder is, we had a public meeting in which there was a pretty accurate discussion between the neighborhood and Black Hills Power as to what the changes were being proposed. The most recent changes that I have seen from Mr. Dunn and Mr. Carta are quite different from that which was discussed at that South Junior High or South Middle School meeting. And I'm wondering if the neighborhood has had a true chance to look at that, although I did certainly hear from the perhaps 7 or 8 of you who expressed a continued concern about this project. But the one thing as I thought about this, they are proposing burying, they are proposing some additional landscaping, and I did at least think the neighborhood might want to at least look at this new proposal, because it would appear to me that it'll just stay the same as what it is. And so I didn't know if it was appropriate to at least allow the neighborhood to take a second look at what this entails.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I think we've been discussing this for quite a while, and we've had some public meetings. And from my understanding, you know, they're asking just for the fence height exception, but from the beginning of this process, it's grown and a lot of information's come out. And I think there's been some improvements as far as what's been brought forward. But I guess I'd just like ask Bob a question, you know, for the residents that are here. You know, if we approve this fence height exception, this is not the final say in anything. I think there's still a long process for this all to go forward. I mean, as far as with the planning commission and so forth, I believe the residents will be able to sit down and go through it even more detail what's actually happening. I mean, could you explain to us a little more of the process, Bob?
Yes, there's an 11/6/19 process to go through yet.
Okay, so that'd go back up in front of the planning commission so the residents could come back and Black Hills Power would be able to sit back down with them and go through even more of what's coming forward, right? Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess that's my point, because we've got another item that will be coming up on the agenda later on. You know, the question is what, you know, residential around this area, and you know, one area I had visited was this is a totally different deal. They'd talked about they moved there when it was already there, and they knew when they moved there that station was there, and so that's something we need to kind of consider when we're thinking about this, is that it's not like it was just planted there, that the residents did move there when it was there. Those are my only comments.
Thank you. Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask for clarification on the motion. The simple motion to approve, I'm gathering that the intent was not to approve the item as listed on the agenda. It was probably one of the other alternatives that have been presented, and I think that just needs to be clear for the minutes.
Okay, I'm going to go to the motion maker, who was Aaron Costello. Was that your intent, was to make a motion to approve as per the last design submitted by Black Hills Power?
Indeed, it was.
Including all the landscaping?
Yes, including the landscaping and the new fence design as attached.
Okay, very good. Anything else, Mr. Green? Okay, let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate them looking at the site selection, different site selections, and having discussion about noise reduction and aesthetics. I guess 2 questions. Can maybe someone from Black Hills Power address the concern that can you make a different site work? I heard that because of cost, that was one of the factors that a different site wouldn't work. Is that the only reason, or does that take you too far out of an area, or is it strictly a financial decision? And then if it's approved to do the fence height exception, what happens? I know part of this is to buy a piece of property, So I would think that at that property, you would have some room to expand. What would it look like if we continue to grow as a community in that area? Would it be plans to drop other pieces of material in that substation?
I'll
Mark,
try to answer all your questions.
Why don't you go and identify yourself for the record, if you
Okay,
would, please?
Mark Sarda, Black Hills Power. First of all the other sites that we looked at were, one, too far from the load center. So the construction of those sites and the infrastructure involved and how to tie it to the existing system to pick up all the customers really aren't viable. It doesn't really fit. It's a financial decision too, but it also is in the wrong location. If we expand the site as we propose by buying the house, once we're done there won't be any further expansion. We're going to build it such that we are not only addressing the growth today, but in the future for years and years and years. We don't plan on coming back and doing it again. So I hope that answers your questions at this time.
It does, Mark.
Mr. Chapman,
just
you have the
one
floor.
follow-up.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you are or if Black Hills Power is engaged in future land use discussions, if you actually sit at the table at those meetings when we're talking about the growth of the community. But it would seem, and we're not a total build out in Rapid City. There's still some areas that we can build in, but I would hope that in future discussions about how the community grows, that you are thinking well in advance to think about purchasing property so that we don't have substations in the future. I mean, as we continue to grow south, where there are neighbors and we're so close to neighborhoods like this, if we could think about how to buffer that, or if those discussions are going on, or if Black Hills Power is actually sitting at the table of future land use.
We do that. Our planning people sit down and they look at how the city's planning on expanding and the growth. We try to get ahead of the process years and years down the road and purchase a parcel of land ahead of time to address that load growth and site substations. So yeah, we've done that in the past and we continue to try to do that for the future growth.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Let's go to Alderwoman Patty Martinson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I understand the concerns of the neighbor of having the an expansion of the substation, but I'm also concerned that we don't transfer the problem to another neighborhood, basically shifting the problem to someone else because they don't want it in their own neighborhood. So I want to keep that in mind when we're voting on this issue, that we don't transfer and create more of a problem by choosing some other location.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen, whoops, I'm tell you what, I'm going to go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock, who has not spoken yet.
Just a question, has future land use looked at this area and this expansion that's coming forward and met with these people and looked at this area since they've been looking at like the last area with the parking lot and the expansion of the man that was going to expand his parking lot? Have they looked at this area and had a recommendation of a future expansion of a utility station?
Bob?
I'm getting a nod that yes, they have.
And what was the recommendation?
I don't attend those meetings, so I'm sorry, but I can't answer that.
Okay. If you'd like to yield, we'll go, Alderwoman Olson says she'll choose it. And Deb, if you'd like, we'll come back to you after.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Olson has the opportunity to answer that.
Future land use has been in conversation with Black Hills Power and has discussed this, and future land use certainly would like to see this expansion occur in another location.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Alderwoman Hadcock, anything else? Okay. I'm going to go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to Alderwoman Olson's comments on future land use, I sent an email out to Marcia Elkins, and I thought everyone was CC'd on that. And I wish I could check my email right now. But the way I understood it, it was written that they had talked about it, but there was no formal action taken. It's nothing that they consider because substations are conditional use in this residential area. So it's, I guess in keeping all things honest here, it's hard for me to say, yeah, to understand or agree with the statement that yes, future land use, this is their opinion when there's no formal opinion set out yet. I have some other questions on the site since questions are going out beyond the fence. And this would be for either Mr. Sarda or Mr. Dunn. A few questions on the site itself as far as capacity and load.
And
I'll
Alderman
ask him
Costello, yeah,
specifically.
if you could try to.
I just wanted to get one of them up there, so,
Yeah.
okay.
And just a reminder for everyone, the issue today is actually the fence height variance. We're going to give everybody a little bit of leeway because we realize that it's somewhat related to a 11-6-19 review that has to come through. But if we can try and keep it fairly close, I appreciate it. With
Well,
that,
thank you for that leeway, Mr. Mayor. Stephen, what is the current capacity of this substation?
We have 2 transformers in the current site. There's 2 ratings. There's a base rating and a fans-on rating. The base ratings for each one of them is 7.5 MVA. The proposed design would account for 2 transformers with a base rating of 15 MVA.
So currently it's 15 total, and you're proposing
As a
2
base
at
rating.
15 each base.
As a base rating.
Yeah, okay.
With the stage of the fans on, I believe it's 10.5 for the existing each one, so you'd have your 21, and it'd be 25 per transformer with the new proposed design.
Okay, so you're talking at more than doubling the capacity.
Substantial growth, yeah.
Okay. What is the current load as a percentage of maximum fans on?
I looked at it at one point, and I can't say for sure exact numbers, but I want to say it was around 85% of
85% of
total capacity.
Okay. What happens if one of the substations fails?
How that works is our substations are tied together. If one fails, we have to do our best to accommodate that with another substation. That's kind of the issue that we have going forward, is we're getting to a point where we can't do that.
What areas of town does this substation serve, and what would be affected if something failed?
From the substation site, it goes in all directions. Our feeders, we have 4 feeders coming out of there as it sits right now. One goes to the north, one goes west, east, and south, picking up the hospital, all the commercial load along Mount Rushmore Road or 8th Street, in addition to all the residential area around there.
You say the hospital is connected to this?
Yes.
Okay. My other questions were already addressed. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Additional discussion. Alderman Olson, did you have anything else you'd like to add? I know you mentioned that.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify my comment in behalf of future land use. Future land use didn't ever take an absolute position, but we did agonize over and certainly suggest, even talk to Black Hills Power, Growth Management did, if another site could be possibly secured. But there was a lot. There was discussion always with the problem of where was a suitable place for this alternative space.
Okay. Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval with the understanding or with the stipulations that it is with the latest revision as presented by Black Hills Power, including the fence and landscaping and everything else that was presented in the package. Is that correct? Okay. Want to make sure. Okay. With that, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to state that it appears that the Future Land Use Committee has considerable sway. Yet, when I look for the minutes or documentation of the meetings, I do not find anything on future land use. I do not think that official minutes are kept or published, in my view or my understanding, and at least it doesn't appear that way. And I think that that's a big problem for the credibility of the process. And so I would just encourage the city to take action on that, and then if we're going to give credence to the work of the Future Land Use Committee, their work needs to be above board, documented, and available for everybody to see. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alderman Quaker, that is a good point. Just for point of clarification, the Future Land Use Committee deals strictly with the zoning. When you have a conditional use within that zoning, that typically is not even discussed at the future land use. What we're talking about is basically the overlying zoning. There are many different things that are included as far as conditional uses within each one of the zoning districts. So typically, and there again, I'm going to go back about 10 years ago when future land use first started up, and I served on it, I think, for about 6-7 years. In the past, we've actually in the past, we never actually had discussions as far as substations because of the fact that they were a conditional use. Just like any other conditional use within any other zoning, we were dealing with, in essence, the broader picture, basically the overlying zoning, not the conditional uses. So Alderman Quaker is exactly right, but keep in mind the future land use is basically looking at the broader pictures. We're not getting down into the details of what the conditional uses are in those locations for those conditional uses. That's why I don't think there's, in matter of fact, I've never heard of a formal recommendation from the Future Land Use Committee dealing with any conditional use. Jason, I mean, no, not even in that. Jason, have we ever?
Not in my recollection. It's possible that something was referred back on the ACDC intertie, but I don't think that would have been taken up in advance. Future land use really deals with speculation about what will happen in the future and not about specific applications that are actually presented. Those go through the formal process from the get-go. They don't have an informal ad hoc committee look at them.
Right. And just to tag on to what our city attorney said was the fact that conditional use is always taken up as a separate process. So there's always that hearing process. Okay, everyone clear on the motion on the floor? The motion on the floor is for approval with the understanding that it is for the approval of the plan as presented by Black Hills Power with revision to the fence, the landscaping, and everything else that was presented. Is that correct? Everyone understand that motion? Seeing no further lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Let's take a roll call, please.
Martinson?
Aye.
Quaker?
No.
Costello?
Aye.
LaCroix? I'm sorry, was it?
Aye.
Okay. Chapman?
Aye.
Olson? Weifenbach? Kroger? Adcock? Waugh?
Aye.
Motion passes on a 6-4 vote. Is that correct?
Right.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. There again, keep in mind this was for the fence heights variance only, and this will be back in front of us for the 11/6/19 review. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Oh, that is true. Thank you for the correction. 11/6/19 is actually at the city or at the planning commission level, so that's where that decision will be made, at the planning commission level. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item number 71, please. Yep. Item number 70, please. I'm sorry, 71.
71. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 71 is a request by Troy Erickson for MG Oil Company for a conditional use permit to allow an on-sale liquor establishment located the southwest corner of the intersection of Lindbergh Avenue and Haynes Avenue. I move for approval with stipulations.
Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Croker.
Thank you, Mayor. If I might ask Mr. Dominic a question.
Go ahead, please.
Bob, what was the notification on this property?
Bob?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
What kind of notification to the neighborhood was put out for this request? Anything?
It had been advertised as a conditional use, the normal process, and then the hearing at the Planning Commission.
So normal process on a conditional use is just notification in the paper then, is that correct?
That's what I understand, yes.
Okay. There's no mailings or anything like that there to the neighborhood?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I guess number one, Mayor, I'm going to state that I do have some major concerns here. I can certainly tell you that I know that the North Rapids Civic Association and a couple neighborhood watches up in that area, watch groups, are going to be opposed to something like this going in that neighborhood. And I guess I don't want to put the police chief on a spot tonight, but I think this council needs to know of the activity that takes place in the trailer court that's adjacent to this area and the number of calls for service that go on and the activity with the police department and council members and such as to try and clean that area up there. And I think that has a very vital point to a casino going in that area. So number one, I guess I'm going to put a motion on the floor to continue this for 2 weeks to allow the North Rapids Civic Association and neighborhood watches and the police chief to bring records of what takes place in that area to this meeting.
Okay, we have a substitute motion and a second to continue. Now, just so you know, we can't put any stipulations on a continuation motion, but I think they heard what your request is. Discussion on the continuation motion only, please. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you. I'm in support of the continuation motion. I had several, at least 3 questions myself, and so I feel like returning this would then go to, would it go back to Legal and Finance?
Typically, if we're going to continue, we'll continue to the next council meeting, unless the motion maker specifically directs it to go back to Legal and Finance.
The key thing in my mind, though, Mr. Mayor, would be I feel uncomfortable voting with this. I think there's a number of unanswered questions, so I think it's appropriate to continue this to get those answers.
Okay. Very good. And I'm going to ask for a point of clarification on the motion. Typically, when there's just a straight motion to continue, typically it would come back to the city council at the next council meeting. I want to make sure that was the intent of the motion maker. Mr. Kroger?
Third at Public Works.
Should have been, I believe.
I can answer some of that. I can answer some of that, Mayor, if...
Well, let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney. I'm sorry, Troy.
Sorry.
I think it just came from Planning Commission. If it went to one of the committees, it was probably Public Works.
Okay. So there again, we can continue, typically a continuation motion with no direction would come back to city council in 2 weeks. In this case, it would come back at the September 8th, which is a little bit longer because of Labor Day.
Actually, I would just assume that I'd like to include my motion that goes to Public Works. Is it Public Works that would go to then? Or Legal and Finance?
You can send it to either.
I'd like to have it go to Legal and Finance. I believe that the neighborhood in that area needs to be able to come forward to this body or to Legal and Finance and voice their concerns.
Okay. Okay, and I'm going to ask the rest of the council, is there any objection to, in essence, the intent of the motion? If not, the chair will determine that is appropriate motion, so that is a motion on the floor.
Mayor
Discussion on the continuation motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
So I can't make a substitute? I guess my substitute motion was to deny, only because of across the street 200 feet is a neighborhood. That'd be the trailer court that we're talking about, based on all the things that Mr. Kroger's having you look up. And the North Rapids Civic Association, that's a huge part of why I would deny this. This is not appropriated in the neighborhood, and it's from 700 feet. I know there's a field there, but there's a lot of neighbors in this area, and we had this same issue in our area. So my substitute would be to deny, because I feel once we get all the information, which pretty much if you listen to what he just said, it needs to be denied. So that would be my substitute motion.
Okay, so we have a second substitute motion to deny. Do we have a second? Okay, so we have a second substitute motion and a second. We're going to, since we're actually into the second substitute motion, we're going to hold the discussion strictly to the motions that are on the floor. The motion on the floor, which is a second substitute motion, is for denial. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can someone in the House tell me if this came from Legal and Finance or Public Works?
I do not. I believe it came straight from the Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, and it was a recommended approval.
Yeah.
Sorry. I could clarify some of that.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Erickson.
Okay,
Can
go
you
ahead,
clarify
please.
some of this?
Thank you for playing. Now, Mr. Erickson, if you could, and my apologies, typically at this point of the meeting, unless there's a specific question of the applicant, the public hearing has closed. So with that, the question is, can you clarify a little bit of how this actually got here?
Yep. I went through the normal process. This license actually was a license I had up on Campbell Street. Chances Casino was the name of the casino. Lost the lease in the building up by Godfather's. Moved the license over to the clock tower so I didn't lose the license. Tom Lettner's building this building there, so I went in and asked Tom Lettner if I could move the license there. Went through the normal process, the use and review, mailed all the green cards, posted the sign on the property for the 21 days, went to the Planning Commission meeting. No one showed up, no one complained. We sent out all the green cards. Every one of them came back the next day. Every one of them picked it up. Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval. The next day, Mr. Rangel came down to the City Hall, dropped off a letter that just said, I protest based on I own the property across the street and I don't think I want a casino across the street from my strip mall. And that's how we got to this point here.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson.
Thank you.
I guess my next question would be for Mr. Green. Has this gone through the correct process?
Mr. Green.
Yes, it has. Conditional uses are final once approved by the Planning Commission unless appealed to the City Council. I believe that the notice of protest would constitute an appeal, so the matter is properly before the council for your consideration.
So you're saying that the letter that Mr. Rangel presented is grounds to have it come to the council?
Yes.
Okay. I think that to be fair to everybody, I think that the continuation motion that we originally had would make the most sense to be able to allow, if there needs to be some more notification because of the sensitive situation that we have in that particular area, but to deny, I think, would not be proper. I think that, I mean, he's gone through the process, done everything he's supposed to do. Planning Commission approves it, and then he comes here tonight and finds out he's denied, and we don't even know exactly what's all going on. So I guess I would have to listen to the rest of the council, but I can't deny this tonight. I think I'd like to see some continuation, at least give Mr. Erickson an opportunity. If there's more neighbors up there or the neighborhood associations or whatever vehemently oppose it, then let's get those facts in order. I'm not here to guess anybody. I haven't heard from any of those organizations. Don't know if they've been even approached with this. I think it would be proper to approach them with that because the North Rapids Civic Association has done a lot of work in North Rapids to make that area a lot nicer. I think that we would be doing them an injustice by just approving this tonight, but at the same time, I think we'd be doing Mr. Erickson an injustice by denying it tonight. So with that in mind, I'll yield the floor.
Thank you. And just for point of clarification, I think that Mr. Erickson addressed one of the questions of whether or not there was notification. By the mailing of green cards, that means you notified probably everyone within 200 feet of the property.
500 feet.
500 feet of the property.
Correct.
Which is a typical procedure on a conditional use. And they are required to actually get the green cards and actually turn those back in to growth management.
Certified mail. They exclude all sidewalks, roads, everything like that is excluded from the 500 feet.
Motion, the second substitute motion on the floor is for denial. If we can, we'll try and keep the discussion to that, if we could, please. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
I'll be voting no on this motion. I think the continuation motion is the superior way of handling what to me we need, which is additional information.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Ditto.
That was easy. Let's go to Alderman Bill Waugh. Okay, question's been called. Is there any objection to calling the question? Is there any objection to calling the question? Seeing none, we go directly to the question. The question on the floor is the second substitute motion, which is a motion to deny. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Let's take a quick roll call, please.
Quaker? Aye. Costello?
No.
LaCroix?
He'll be abstaining.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chapman?
No.
Olson? No. Weifenbach?
No.
Kroger?
Aye.
Adcock?
No. Or,
You made the motion. I don't know how you voted.
Waugh?
No.
Martinson? No. That's 3-6.
3-6. And just for point of clarification, Alderman LaCroix, the question was why the abstention?
My wife is a general manager of South Dakota Betting, which is 7 different casinos, and she'd looked at that property at one time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Motion fails. Was it a 3-6 votes? We're back to the substitute motion, which is a motion to continue, and that was to send it to, was it Legal and Finance? Is that correct? Is that where we ended up? Okay. So the substitute motion is to continue this item to the Legal and Finance Committee. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Being that there's neighbors 700 feet from there that are right behind there, maybe that should be a little bit further where we send those notices.
Okay. Just, you know, on a motion to continue, we cannot put stipulations on that motion.
Then how do we know that, how do we tell the neighbors that are behind there that there's going to be a casino by them when it's 700 feet away?
I believe you can do that at the Legal and Finance Committee, but you cannot do that as part of the continuation motion. Once it gets to Legal and Finance, you can make that recommendation from that committee.
So on this continuation motion, it's going to Legal and Finance or Council?
It is headed towards Legal and Finance.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just ask everyone sitting up here prior to our next council meeting that you all drive by there. And I know Mr. Erickson might have did a 200-foot notice or whatever, but that went to that trailer court up there. And my understanding is that trailer court is basically every one of those is a rental trailer. And they probably don't really care. And I think once you drive through that trailer court, you'll understand that they don't really care. The police department has been working for 2 years to try and clean that area up there. There's numerous homes that probably are not livable, and hopefully most of those have been gotten rid of, but you really need to drive in that area. It's not an appropriate place to put a casino, in my opinion, because people that live in that neighborhood, especially in that trailer court, those are the kind of people that use video lottery, and I don't think it's appropriate for them either, so thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is to continue this to the Legal and Finance Committee meeting, which is a substitute motion. Everyone clear on that motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to item number 65. If you could read in item number 65.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 65 is, let's see, MG Oil Company doing business as Chances Casino with a retail off-sale malt liquor beverage license with video lottery transfer from MG Oil Company doing business as Clock Tower Lounge, 2525 West Main Street. Yield to the floor.
Do we want a continuation motion to the next council meeting? Okay. We have a motion and a second to continue this to the next council meeting, which I believe is September 8th. Is that correct? Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 72, please.
Item number 72 is the second reading, ordinance 5518, and ordinance amending section 17.
I'm sorry.
I just heard discussion, so I'm making sure I'm still in order here. Yep. Okay.
You're good to go.
Great. An ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning within described property as requested by Dream Design International Incorporated for rezoning from medium density residential district to office commercial district. The area located at 336 Meade Street. I'll yield to the floor.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Bob, did you have anything? Okay. Motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing no further lights. Whoops. Alderman Costello, did you?
No, I was shutting my microphone.
Okay. Very good. Motion on the floor is for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion passes with one no from Alderwoman Karen Olson. Item number 73, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 73 is the second reading, ordinance 5521, and ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning within described property as requested by the City of Rapid City for rezoning from no use district to general agriculture district on an area generally described as the intersection of East St. Patrick Street and South Dakota Highway 44, and I move for approval.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That does take us to the bill list. Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. The bill list totals $7,762,773.96. I'd like to add two items. First one is the Heaven Constructors Incorporated for Mead Street Reconstruction Phase 2, change order number 4, final, $48,916.97. And RCS Construction, Foreman Street Downspout, change order number 1, final, $3,640.85. Makes a new total of $7,815,331.78.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the bill list as amended for a grand total of $7,815,331.78.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Mr. Green, do we have an executive session?
We do, and it would be for the purposes permitted by SDCL 1-25-2.
Could we have a motion, please? Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to go in executive session for the purposes permitted by SDCL 1-25-2. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Thank you. We're in executive session. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We're out of executive session. Chair, look for motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, did you see that? Brought me up a whole bag. I filled the cup full of them. Somebody likes me.